Okay, you know what my interviews at Adobe, Deloitte, and literally every company I have ever worked at all have in common? It's actually the same thing that every interview you have ever had and you will ever have also has in common. And of course, it's the tell me about yourself or give me an intro question. Let me tell you, I used to hate this question. Like a lot of people hate it. Interns, senior VPs. It feels like the first 30 seconds, the first question of an interview is deciding everything. So I get it. That's why I used to hate it. That's probably why you hate it or dread it. But here's a twist. This is not the question where you're supposed to sell yourself. And this is not a question, believe it or not, and I'll show you exactly why, where you're supposed to impress the recruiter or the interviewer. You might do that indirectly, but it's not the goal. What I hope to show you in this video is not just what to answer, but how to answer, and especially make you realize that this can be the most chill question in your entire interview. And we're gonna start this by reframing. So let's get right into it. So I used to think this question was all about summarizing my life or my career journey perfectly in about 2 minutes maximum to not bore the person that I'm speaking to. But here's the reality. The what of your journey, your interviewer already knows. You've already submitted your CV. That's the reason you're there in the first place. They know what your experience is. The point of this question is not for you to relist your experience or summarize. It's especially about context. They want to know why you've done what you've done. They want to break the ice. They want to see how comfortable you are and confident you are. And the way to do this is to share the why behind your journey and to share what makes you tick, why you made the choices you made. And there is a very simple way to do this, and it is not a script, but it's a framework. So let's get right into it. It's called the FIT framework, and it comes from the book, The 2-Hour Job Search by Steve Dalton. It works perfectly across industries, whether you're interviewing for a job as an intern or a senior vice president, or you're even just doing an interview for a scholarship or a university application, whatever it is, it works really, really well. So FIT is a framework about transitions. It's essentially you talking about each one of your experiences and the why behind it, as well as the why behind why you moved from one thing to another. So let me first walk you through what the acronym means, and then we'll go through an example. So F stands for favorite part. So you're essentially sharing the favorite part of your journey that you're talking about. I stands for insight gained, or realizing that something is or isn't working or isn't a fit for you. And T is transition, which means what change in your journey did you make as a result? And that's it. Your answer to this question, tell me about yourself, is essentially going to be a bunch of FIT statements where you essentially explain for each part of your journey, your favorite part, what was the insight learned, and what was the transition you made after that and why. It's like taking your CV and each block of it and just creating a FIT statement for each and talking about it naturally. And here's how you structure your answer. So usually when you start out, before you get into your FIT statements, you want to start answering the question with a statement. Like, yes, you want to be clear about who you are. So you say, hi, my name is this and that. I'm currently a whatever, developer, strategist, researcher, working in this. So you can give that one high-level summary. Maybe you share years of experience or broad themes of your skills and what you do. But the idea here is to not go into too much detail. This is just the present level, who you are. You share it quickly, and then you get right into your FIT statements. So let's go through an example, and it'll give you a much better idea of what I'm talking about. So here's a great tell me about yourself answer that follows this framework. First, I'm currently working in strategy and growth, but my path here wasn't linear. And then we start with your education as the first part of your journey, and we attribute a FIT statement to it. So here, for example, you would say, in college, I studied engineering, and I loved solving complex problems. I really liked zooming out and asking why, and that's the insight gained piece. And then we get to transition made for this example, which is after graduating, I moved into strategy consulting because I felt that was the fastest way to apply this across many industries. That was your transition made. Now we get to the favorite part. I loved solving a ton of problems at a quick pace, insight gained now. But over time, I realized that I wanted to be closer to execution, not just recommendations. I wanted to see ideas actually turn into outcomes. And now we get into the transition made for this first role of strategy consulting, which may be, that really pushed me into product management, where I could combine strategy with real world impact. And let's just wrap up this example, but you could go on with multiple FIT statements if you had multiple roles. But in this case, maybe we just say, and that's where I am now, still problem solving, but applying it in a bit more of a hands-on fashion. And that's it. That's a simple answer to tell me about yourself, but it gives you an idea of how the FIT statement works. Because again, you noticed through this question, I didn't brag. I didn't list out my resume in this example. I just shared the why behind different parts of my journey. And what this does really well is it breaks the ice and it invites questions for each part of your journey that are deeper than just tell me what you did at this company. Now it's more about, oh, tell me about this thing you enjoyed. You said you liked complex problems. What is a complex problem you've solved? So you're starting off an interview on the right foot, and you've answered confidently and in a way that's true to your journey, and in a way that's sharing new information too that's not on your resume. Now let me just give you some general tips, because you almost have everything you need, but these are super important. So first, you want to go for about 2-3 minutes maximum. You don't want to ramble. Again, they have the details on your resume and you'll be sharing them throughout the whole interview. You have 50 minutes to sell yourself. This is not the time to ramble. That's why you have a whole conversation. And then next, and this is very, very important, don't memorize. I really don't recommend you memorize any of these fit statements or anything like that. Maybe just have bullet points of each part of your journey that you want to bring up, because for some folks that's helpful. So instead of having your full resume next to you, you might have a bullet point for each part of your journey, and then just speak to it naturally. Like, truly, this is the question where you want to be improvising, or at least speaking from the heart or from the brain instead of from a memorized piece of paper, because you're speaking about the whys behind your journey, and that is the most personal thing there can be. Also, you can tailor this in advance. You can omit certain roles that you don't think are relevant. So if you have a vast pool of experience and parts of your journey, maybe you don't speak to all of them in the interview because you want to speak to what's most relevant and you don't want to ramble on for too long. And then the last thing I will say is to breathe. Hopefully I made you realize that this is a very personal question now. It's not a test. Once you stop seeing it as a test and you start seeing it as an invitation to share your why and share your story and who you are, I just think it gets a lot less stressful, and I hope you find that that is the case for you as well. And I hope it starts being a question you actually enjoy answering. Best of luck, you got this. And if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments down below. I make a lot of videos about recruiting and just doing better at work and in your life and ventures in general. So if that's interesting to you, please subscribe, and a like is free and it helps the channel tremendously. All right, see you in the next one.